The morning was heavy with gray clouds, and the streets outside the old brick bank seemed unusually quiet, as if the world itself had paused. Inside, however, the atmosphere was bustling. Customers shuffled papers, clerks clicked away at keyboards, and the faint hum of a printer underscored the steady rhythm of financial transactions. Yet in one corner of the bank, unnoticed by most, stood a man dressed in a plain, slightly worn-out shirt and dark trousers. His shoes, though polished, bore the faint creases of long use, and his hands carried the faint calluses of someone who had worked harder than his appearance suggested. No one knew him, at least not here, not in this branch, not in this city. They only saw what their eyes told them, an ordinary man, perhaps even a struggling one. But what they didn't know was that beneath that modest exterior stood the CEO of the very bank they worked for. He had come here unannounced, quietly, without his entourage, without the gleaming black cars or the polished suits that usually announced his presence. He wanted to see with his own eyes what customers went through. He wanted to feel the treatment, raw and unfiltered, not the performance people stage for a powerful man. And so he stood in line like everyone else, carrying a small passbook in his hand, the corners slightly bent, as though it had been carried for years. The bank manager, a middle-aged man with slicked-back hair and a sharp suit, noticed him finally when the line moved forward. His eyes flicked to the passbook, then back to the man's face, and a smirk tugged at the corners of his mouth. Without even checking the details properly, the manager chuckled and said something that echoed through the marble hall with arrogance. "I'll pay you double if you even have a balance in this old account." The laughter spread to a couple of clerks nearby, and the room seemed to close in with judgmental silence. The man simply lowered his gaze, his expression calm, but inside, the sting cut deep. He had seen arrogance before, but hearing it in this place, his bank, his people, hurt more than he expected. And right there, before the truth came out, I want to pause. If you believe in kindness, in humility, and in second chances, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to this channel. It helps us spread stories that remind people of humanity and respect in a world where judgment often comes too quickly. Now, back to the story. The man, whose name was Imran, did not react with anger. Instead, he nodded politely and asked the manager to check. The manager, still grinning, flipped open the passbook, typed the number into the system, and then froze. His smile slipped into confusion, then disbelief. The figures on the screen stared back at him. 8 digits, then 9, balances stretching into amounts he had never personally handled. The account did not belong to some forgotten laborer or a desperate borrower. It belonged to the owner of the bank, the one man who held more power than anyone else in that room. Imran's identity was confirmed when he quietly produced his identification card. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Gasps rippled through the hall. Clerks sat upright, guards adjusted their stance, and the arrogant smile of the manager dissolved into panic. But here's where the story takes a turn. Imran did not scold him. He did not shout, nor did he demand respect through power. Instead, he asked a simple question. If you can treat me like this, what about the poor farmer who comes here with his life's savings? What about the widow who walks in, holding her late husband's pension? Do you laugh at them too? The silence that followed was louder than any thunderstorm. The manager lowered his head, shame filling the space that arrogance had once occupied. Imran walked around the branch that day, speaking to customers, shaking hands, and listening to their stories. A young mother explained how she waited hours just to deposit money. An elderly man confessed that clerks sometimes dismissed him because he couldn't read the forms properly. Each story cut deeper, and Imran realized the problem wasn't just one man's arrogance. It was a culture that had slowly seeped into the system. A culture of superiority, of forgetting that behind every account number was a human being with dreams, fears, and struggles. He returned to the counter, this time not as a customer, but as their leader. He announced changes right there: new training for staff, strict accountability for disrespectful behavior, and a program to reward kindness shown to customers. He promised better systems for the elderly, priority counters for single parents, and a commitment to rebuild trust. And as he spoke, something remarkable happened. Customers began to clap, tears welled in eyes, and the heavy atmosphere transformed into one of hope. The manager, who had once laughed, now stood trembling. He whispered an apology, but Imran did not dwell on punishment. Instead, he said, "Change begins with regret, but it only lives if you act differently tomorrow." He gave him a chance. Not because he deserved it, but because every person deserved the opportunity to become better. In the weeks that followed, the branch changed drastically. Customers who had once dreaded coming now walked in with smiles. Clerks who had once ignored the elderly now stood to guide them. The manager himself became an example, greeting each visitor with humility, remembering the lesson burned into his heart that day. The bank itself grew, not because of the numbers in its vault, but because of the trust it rebuilt with its people. And so, the story ends not with punishment, but with transformation. A reminder that arrogance can destroy, but humility can heal. A reminder that true power does not lie in titles or balance sheets, but in the way we treat the people who place their trust in us. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the importance of kindness, respect, and second chances, then I invite you to engage with this video, like it, comment your thoughts, and share it so others may be inspired. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because together, by sharing these stories, we can bring back humanity where the world needs it most.